System. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan McGrew. We're going to wait just a couple minutes to let people join. So just give us just a couple minutes and we'll get started. Thank you. All right, it's 12 straight up, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and good afternoon. My name is Dan McGrew with IT Services 2. We are a SAP partner, CC Flex partner, consulting company that focuses on SAP. Been at it a long time. Second generation company. I think this time around it's about 17 years. One of the areas that we focus on is BTP, and we've got a real treat for you today because we have Shawn Brown joining us from SAP, who is an expert in this area, and we're going to talk to Shawn, and he's going to answer some of the questions that we get asked when we're talking to prospects and customers about what they can do with BTP and what are the benefits and all that sort of thing. So I'd like to welcome all of you, and we appreciate you joining. Thank you. And I hope you find this to be very informative and educational for you. So Shawn, welcome. Glad to have you, sir.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Happy to be here.
Great. Tell us, Shawn, give us a little history on your background and what you've done, and just help the audience understand a little bit about you, please.
Sure thing. So I've been with SAP for around the time that SAP acquired Business Objects in 2008. And before that, I was really with Business Objects since 2000. I was with a number of different, what we used to call the Big Six, which I think I just dated myself as I said that. Now I think it's a Big Four, right? Worked with Deloitte for a while and PwC, and basically did data warehouse design and modeling back in the day. And then, kind of fast forward to where I spent a lot of my time in the SAP days, is really focusing on our overall platform capabilities. So I had a strong presence in the data and analytics space before I really broadened it out and got into all the other areas of the business technology platform. And that's really where I've spent most of my time in the last, I'd say 6-7 years, is really just focusing on our broad platform capabilities and helping customers understand the benefits there.
Fantastic. All right, so let me get started and ask some questions. And folks that have joined us, be prepared to get educated. All right, first question I have, there's probably folks that are really not familiar with what you can do with BTP and what are the benefits and challenges, et cetera. But let's start with this simple question, which is, what is the purpose of BTP? Why did SAP even spend the time to develop BTP? Can you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, it's something that I spent a lot of time doing, years ago when we really introduced it. It's gone through an evolution. SAP's BTP is, we like to change the names of things at SAP, and the BTP is no exception, right? We started off with something that we actually refer to as the HANA Cloud Platform, because SAP HANA was a foundational element to everything that we were doing. Then we moved into what we called the SAP Cloud Platform, and that extended onto some other areas as it relates to app dev and integration and so forth. And then today we've called it the Business Technology Platform, and I'll say exactly what those components are, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we've yet modified it once again this year. But essentially, the big buckets for the BTP have traditionally been the integration space, that's application to application, the application development space, both SAP-centric and non-SAP. Right? We're extending the software to satisfy a overall business process. And then really the last one until probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago was really the data and analytics space. And then that actually extended even more now, and we get into another area that we've offered or that we are offering called the business AI space, so artificial intelligence. So those are the big buckets, if you will, for the BTP traditionally. And then this year, we made a market strategy of how we're going to go to market, and we made an adjustment where we basically put the data and analytics component into another area that we now refer to as the business data cloud. We can talk a little bit about why we did that, but the big driver really is all around the other element that was added, which is artificial intelligence. And really that's about serving the data up so that it can be consumed by artificial intelligence. Those are the big buckets though, and some adjustments that we've made in terms of how we go to market, how we approach our customers. But that's pretty much it.
So let me ask this question, Shawn. What have you found is the driving force behind why a company would want to acquire BTP and utilize it? I know that there's a lot of different applications and we've got use cases we both can share, but just generally, okay, what do you think the reason is that someone is interested in BTP today?
Good question. Yeah. Because I say it's a good question because I would argue in many regards, everything that we are offering from SAP is not unique to the marketplace. You can find a replacement, a competitive solution, essentially for just everything I rattled off: app dev, integration, data and analytics, and AI. Now, when we think about why we would want to leverage SAP's data and platform offerings and AI offerings, then you get into a pretty important question, because all of these components, to leverage them, they take time, right? So one argues that I'd like to see the market leading solution for X to address this particular need that we have in our organization. Well, that's good, but if that market leading offering is not such a differentiator from what maybe some of the other players are in the market, and I state it that way because in all of the areas that SAP offers data, platform, and AI capabilities, we are in that same quadrant if you look at it and from a Gartner perspective, right? So you're not looking at major differences between, SAP is nowhere near where, let's say Salesforce's MuleSoft is, or where, Salesforce's Tableau is, for example, or whatever the case may be. So the real reason that you want to take advantage of what we have in terms of platform data and AI capabilities it is about time. The time that it takes to deploy, the time that it takes to use, the time that it takes to leverage these other capabilities in the market for SAP business applications. And let's go ahead and double click on that one for a moment too, because when I say SAP business applications, there are some offerings within our platform, our data, our AI capabilities that we would argue they are market leading regardless of whether you have any SAP business application footprint or not. So Integration Suite is a great example. Integration Suite is a market leading offering for enterprise integration across the entire landscape of an organization. We've got a good customer experience that we've actually seen that happen. Very large organization. But for SAP applications, it would be foolish not to consider what we have to offer. And the big element of that really gets into, when I say time, is because of all the content that we give you. All of the, let's say, for example, we're talking about app dev, right? There are a number of scenarios that we see our customers say, we need to be able to do this. And SAP has decided we're not necessarily going to take that overload of what is going to be asked of a collection of customers and put that into the business application, because we think that that will make the business application become a bit too unwieldy, if you will. So as a result, what we do is we say, all right, we understand that there's a need in the marketplace to extend a capability within our ERP, within supply chain solutions, within our ERP solution. And that scenario is where we would go ahead and say, we're going to deliver the content, the packages, if you will, for you to extend the business application as you've asked for. We're just going to give it to you out of the box, right? So that means it's something that you don't have to develop. We do this in all the other areas as well, whether you're talking about process automation with our SAP Build products, whether you're talking about integration suite, where we offer all these iFlows that are SAP to SAP, SAP to non-SAP, and even non-SAP to non-SAP, right? Where we're offering those integration packages out of the box for no additional charge. And essentially, the analogy I like to use on this is, if I asked you to go ahead and build a house, right? And I said, all right, how long is it going to take to build this house? Well, it's 12 months from start to finish, right? I know that's aggressive. Nobody builds a house that fast these days, except for some places, right? But 12 months start to finish. And I said, all right, but I'm going to go ahead, based on the plans that you have, I have a prefab ability to build the walls, the foundation, all the infrastructure of the house, and put on a roof. And all that work is done. I'm just waiting for you to tell me all the little special things that you would like to see happen inside the house. I want these type of countertops, these type of cabinets. I want the walls to be textured or smoothed, or these type of flooring. All of those components are things that will drive that this is how I want my house to look. And you might make an analogy that your business is very similar. We provide business applications that will will offer and cover a large percentage of what it is that you need to do. But even if it's 70, 80%, which is common, that's a great example to go ahead and buy it off the shelf, go with that approach. And then there's what's left over, right? That what's left over is the stuff that we're talking about in the platform, the data, and in AI space. That's where that house analogy comes in, and you say, I've already built the house in terms of all the elements outside, this roof and so forth. Now all you need to do is figure out how you're going to put those other components together. So if I cut your development time, or your creation of integrations, or let's say analytics, and if I've cut all that down to half, or even I'm going at 60% of what your requirements are, 70%, that just means it's a lot of work that you don't have to do. That's where we get back into time. And the last point I'll make here, Dan, on this is, when you consider what the cost is for software and for applications, it's really a fraction. It's always a fraction of the cost when you consider that as it relates to human hours and development time. And if I think anybody that looks at, kind of the projects that they've always done, and they thought, yeah, we stood up this application, we bought it for X. Normally the time to actually put it into place and actually deliver it could be as much as 2X or more. So the more we can get you down the road with everything that you need to satisfy your business requirements, which is what we do with the BTP, with our business data cloud, with our business AI capabilities, our platform and data and AI capabilities, that just makes it that much easier for you to finish, and finish on budget or under budget.
Very good. That's an excellent explanation. Let's talk about a few use cases where BTP, where you've personally either been involved or witnessed, the story behind a successful utilization of BTP, and give as much as specifics as you can for the folks out there, because there's somebody on this call today that might be in the same challenge.
Sure. So I'll try to break it down into some of the big areas that I can personally attest to. For example, let's talk about integration for a moment. One of my colleagues, and I can use the name because this colleague of mine works for SAP now. They were responsible at Coke in Atlanta for the integration strategy. And they initially started, that Coke's one of our big customers. They've got a large footprint of SAP. And they initially started with the integration suite for SAP-centric integrations. And it was a colleague of mine, Balaji, who now works over at SAP and has this story that he can tell. And essentially, they started with the SAP to SAP and then expanded and went SAP across their entire landscape for integration. So an enterprise integration strategy with SAP Integration Suite. And again, that's an attestment to the fact that we can deliver that scenario of covering the entire enterprise with integration. Another one that we've got that's a pretty good one is a food processing and delivery. One of the larger ones I can talk to, and it really is around their app dev efforts, where they're already starting to take advantage of a lot of our build efforts, and a lot of it again is because they're looking at the customizations that they had in the past, and as they moved forward, as they upgraded to our latest S/4HANA in the private cloud, they wanted to decommission as much as possible so that they could continue to make those upgrades as we were delivering them, because we are delivering so much value in the space of business AI. And much of that is upgrade specific. You have to be on certain releases for us to be able to deliver some of these AI capabilities. And essentially what they did is they said, we're going to decommission a number of these extensions, these core modifications, and we're going to follow some clean core concepts where we're not going to do it. We're not going to make these adjustments to the core code. We're going to create our extensions as it relates to using a couple different paradigms, whether you're on stack or in BTP side by side. But essentially the goal there is to reduce their overall number of customizations so that they can move forward with these new innovations that we will offer right out of the application, right out of the box. Because the other area, while you can build much of what you want in our business AI capabilities, and that is a BTP component, we also offer a lot of AI component capabilities that are part of the business applications. But again, those business applications need to be at certain versions to be able to take advantage or fully take advantage of new scenarios as we include them, right? Because the back-end systems change. We need those business AI capabilities to stay abreast with that as well. And then probably the last one is a customer that I've worked with in the Midwest, a rail company that has done a lot in the space of data and analytics. They are heavily using what we had historically known as a product called DataSphere, is now a component of our business data cloud. And again, data and analytics space. They've taken advantage of a number of our out-of-the-box models that essentially are tied into all of our business applications. All you have to do is download those models, make the adjustments that are necessary for the way that your system is configured, and then deploy them, right? Being able to accelerate the data to analytics strategy tremendously. So those are some of the big ways that we've done it in the past for some of the customers we've worked with.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Shawn. I have one that I can add to the mix here in terms of a use case. IT2 helped a company called Pure Fishing out of South Carolina replace their provider for EDI, SPS Commerce with BTP Integration Suite. And the manager said, the director said it was a huge success as a result that they've determined they're going to save $500,000 to $1 million, $250,000 to $500,000 each year by replacing it. And they became very adapt. Their team became very adapt quickly to using it, and now they're replacing another provider, which he's even more excited about. So I bring that up because that's a great example of a really good ROI that's sometimes hard to prove out on paper before you start. And
Sure.
to get this is great. As a matter of fact, that SAP did a success story with the company, and that success story is posted on SAP's website today. So I'm going to segue here for just a second and ask you a little bit of a different question. Might as well go ahead and do it. People, when we talk to people today about BTP, the majority of the time, they're talking about integration suite, or we're talking about app dev. Okay, and one of the topics that keeps coming up that we're being asked about is, well, what about the companies that have the challenge with the original enterprise portal and moving over to WorkZone? Can you talk a little bit about that and provide a little color behind that, please?
Yeah, I mean, every new adjustment. The WorkZone is one that has been a really popular one with a number of different SAP line of businesses. Probably, I would say, one of the most popular is actually within our HXM space with SuccessFactors. But ultimately, the thing that is really cool about WorkZone is that we've become such an open ecosystem now in terms of how we make our capabilities available. We understand and know that organizations are not going to be all SAP. They're going to have everything that is in the marketplace. And so we may just be a component of. But the benefit oftentimes with WorkZone is that you're taking this scenario of I have a business process that is going to span multiple business applications, and I need a way to get to it through a single interface. And that's something that we can offer with WorkZone is, you can access non-SAP applications through the same interface and just move from application to application as needed to satisfy that business process, and to even analyze the steps along the way. We've got capabilities that will help you do that as well. And so the adjustment of moving from the enterprise portals into WorkZone is something that, it is a bit of we've got to go ahead and change from what we're doing to something new. But I think the openness that we're offering now today with WorkZone is the thing that really is a big differentiator for a lot of customers.
Good. Thank you. Okay, I want to get your perspective on the people are very confused. You've got BTP and you got the Business Data Cloud, BDC. Can you sort of spend a minute or two explaining the logic behind the separation of the two? And I know that the AI component in BDC is significant, but just the strategy behind that, so that the people that aren't doing what we do every day have some kind of an understanding. Oh, I see here and I see there. Can you help us with that?
Yeah. So the big thing, that we have to think about when we talk about that separation that we did, it really was all driven by AI. We used to, I would say, as short as 2 years ago, we pretty much would tell customers, leave the data where it is. Basically, like think about it like golf. Play the ball where it lies, right? Don't move it around all over the place. Don't copy it if you can. Like, try to avoid copies. And that strategy was one of trying to maintain the business context and the data integrity of the data at wherever it came from. So if it came from an SAP system, the business context of that data is something that we could count on because it had not been copied. Now, we could pull that off very well with regards to our data and analytics solutions all the way up until this year. And we could do a lot with regards to AI as well. One of the challenges you've got, though, with AI, particularly generative AI, is it's not great with tabular data that's in tables, right? And to make it really good for SAP data, we needed to take it out of that table format. Now, like really, when you think about where all that SAP data is, it's pretty much all in tabular format, in primarily in SAP HANA, our in-memory column or database. So you're dealing with data that could be great for the purposes of analytics. It's already structured in a way that's great for analytics, and we could deliver analytics very easily with what we've done in the past with our capabilities in DataSphere, accessing that data in a virtualized, federated manner without having to materialize that data someplace else. And when you did materialize it, you materialized it to a system with DataSphere that was completely aware of all changes that took place on the source system, real time for the most part. We kind of fast forward from there and we go, all right, well, AI has become this the latest hot topic and the most probably market changing dynamic, probably even more so than the dot-com industry or the dot-com era, if you will. But what changed, right? The big change that we made with taking the data and analytics capabilities that we had and decoupling them a little bit from a messaging that is just platform is we put them into a collection called Business Data Cloud. So we have some capabilities that are in the visualization space, in the space of what customers might like to do in the data warehousing and the preparation of data, building all the business semantics, which we maintain anyway from the source systems, but delivery of that to deliver into those analytical scenarios, to those visualization scenarios. We have all those tool sets. They're already all there. The part that we introduced this year that makes Business Data Cloud such a unique dynamic is we introduced something called data products. Now, data products are not something that are unique to SAP. We didn't invent this term, data products. If you heard of things like the data marketplace, right? Those are terms that have been around for a while. In the data marketplace, you would have data products. So think of it that way. What we're doing at SAP with SAP business applications is we are putting all of the data that comes from those business applications into curated, business semantically aware packages that are easily consumable, easily accessed for the purposes of analytics, but also for any other application, process, or person in your organization, SAP or non-SAP. So when you think about how do I get to the data that's in SAP, this is the answer. It is Business Data Cloud. And by accessing the data through Business Data Cloud, through our curated, business semantically aware data products that are all built upon the business application, all of that is maintained by SAP. So you don't have to worry about extracting large data sets from SAP and then delivering them to some third-party repository, if you will, and then rebuilding all of the modeling, all of the relationships between that data, all of the business semantics, creating all that. We are delivering all of that out of the box through these data products and making that available again for SAP-centric scenarios and for non-SAP centric. If it is an SAP centric, let's stop there for a second. We would encourage the usage of another element that we are delivering out of the box as well, which is called intelligent applications. These intelligent applications will leverage the data products that are the foundational aspects to, again, everything that you want from an SAP data perspective. But those intelligent applications are the visualization layer that is for any particular line of business or industry-based question that you may have of the business application. So we already know some of the questions that organizations are asking. All it is at that point is delivering the visualizations to answer those questions. The intelligent applications, that's the point of them, is to deliver all those visualizations for everything that is an SAP-centric question, out of the box, you include everything from an intelligent application all the way down to data products to access all of the business application data itself. Now, the big thing that we're doing different this year as it relates to this, that argument that we made of don't copy the data, right? We're doing that now. We're actually copying the data, but we are managing it, right? So when we copy the data, we're copying it into Business Data Cloud. It resides in those data products, and it resides in Parquet files in an object store that we offer. Why is that relevant? Why did I even mention Parquet files, right? Because Parquet files are essentially flat files. And when we talked about the challenges that generative AI has to access data, it has challenges accessing data largely in relational systems, which is where the data resides in the first place for the business applications. By copying the data into the Parquet files in the object store in Business Data Cloud and putting them into very consumable data products, we are accelerating the ability to leverage all of that data for artificial intelligence purposes. Whether that's machine learning, traditional AI, or whether that's more in the generative AI capabilities or any of the other type of foundation models that you may take advantage of, right? Or combine that data with, for example, sound or pictures or whatever else is necessary. So by placing it in those Parquet files, we're making it that much more accessible and usable. Those are the big adjustments that we've made in our go-to-market strategy this year as it relates to how we access SAP data, why we're placing it into a new format for delivery, and really, why did we separate this idea of we were the business technology platform? It included data and analytics, and now we've adjusted and we have a go-to-market strategy that is so heavily focused on Business Data Cloud as a separate entity from what we would say our traditional capabilities are within the integration, the app dev, and even the business AI capabilities, where it's a build it type of scenario. The big point here is we did this for a while. We already built a lot of that content. I mentioned it earlier in this discussion where a customer could take packages that included all the data models and download them. We delivered them before we even had Business Data Cloud. We had all of these visualizations that were available through our visualization tool, SAP Analytics Cloud, that you could download and start using. What we've done this year is we've taken all of those capabilities and we've presented them as software as a service. So when you go into Business Data Cloud and you say, I would like the intelligent application for working capital or people intelligence or let's say customer intelligence, then it will have all of the hooks, if you will, and all of the steps, everything, all the dependencies is all just a deploy, push a button and deploy. And all of the content that goes to support the intelligent applications from the visualization layer at the top, all the way down to those data products, all the data models that are required to maintain all of this relationship from top to bottom, all the way into and through those business applications is all managed by SAP. So then that, again, we get back to where we started, in our discussion, which is time. We are trying to cut as much of the development, as much of the work out of maintaining and accessing SAP data as much as possible by providing it out of the box. And the last thing I'll get into here before, because I've talked for a bit about this, is that the next question is, but we're not standard. We're not, we've got our own type of setup. We've got customizations. We've modified the application to do certain things that, how are you going to know that stuff? How are you going to provide that? And we're not going to have something that is specific for every organization out there, but we give you the full tool set to not only take advantage of everything that we are delivering out of the box, but also to modify anything that we've delivered out of the box. You can make a copy of it, bring it over here, make some adjustments to it. If you, for example, have included particular, let's say, customizations that are in the business application, and you need those to be reflected in those data products, you can do that, right? Well, you can do it actually all the way from the source system right into data products that will be delivered out of the box, because you've used standard concepts around clean core to access those data products. We can deliver them as standard data products within Business Data Cloud as well. So you've got the flexibility. Again, what we're not trying to do is build you a house from foundation all the way to the faucet you decide you want to put in the bathroom. We're trying to build most of the structure that you're asking for, and get as high and as far along the way as we possibly can to satisfying what your business requirements are. But we leave you the room to leverage the Business Data Cloud and the business technology platform to essentially finish and do the extra things that you want to do, and do it in a way that allows you to not have a lot of technical debt and move forward with your upgrades.
Very good. That's a great explanation, but I want to go back over here to BTP for a second and
Sure.
answer this question. The folks that may have just listened to you might think, well, I'm better off if I just wait for BDC to be available everywhere. It's really not the case, because BTP, certainly with, like, say, Integration Suite, with the other pillars that are there, all right, you still need BTP to do some of those things, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we have to look at it from a standpoint of major areas that are going to be required to satisfy business processes, right? So the BTP is always going to have that component of integration that's necessary from application to application. It's always going to have this component that the business application doesn't do everything I need it to do, and I need to extend it, right? That app dev element is always going to be there as well. And we're going to have these scenarios that, a lot of organizations that I talk to, everybody seems to have an AI project, but not a lot of them have successful AI projects. So, this gets into, how organizations are going to take advantage of AI for business purposes. Now, we're not talking about, asking a question, for a term paper. We're talking about running your business, and those kind of capabilities are something that really what we're seeing a lot more of in the marketplace is, this is what I like to call embedded or packaged AI, right? We're taking AI and we're closely coupling it with the business application, so that when a customer asks the question of the business application, we can accurately provide a response that is, not 97%, not 98% accurate, especially when you talk about finance data. It's 100% accurate, right? And so that embedded AI capability is really going to satisfy most of the needs that organizations will have as it relates to asking questions of their business applications, but not all of them. And for the not all of them, that other part, I'm going to need to ask a question about that is outside of that, what the business application does. That's where you get back to the BTP. I'm going to build those AI scenarios. And is SAP, going to be a big provider of a large language models and things like? No. But what we will provide are the guardrails, so that when you use pretty much whatever market leading large language model you want, because we have relationships and partnerships with all of them, you are going to get a response that is going to have the guardrails that will make sure that your response is accurate as it relates to the data that's in SAP systems.
Very good. Let me ask this question about BTP, and then I want you to talk a little bit more about clean core. If you're giving advice to someone that's in the audience and they're evaluating whether or not to utilize BTP or purchase BTP, based on your experience, do you know any customers that have rolled BTP out and said, oops, after a period of time, we made a mistake? Have you heard of that ever?
No, the one I've seen more of is a bit of a frustration or a lot of organizations have, or a sense of it is what it is type of scenario when it comes to leveraging a lot of the third-party offerings that they've leveraged for SAP purposes. And the reason for this, I'll give you an example. Google spent a lot of time developing a number of different views into SAP's data sets. Right? They built their own, like almost like what we have, CDS views, core data services views. And these views into this data are something that they were trying to find a way to simplify, leveraging a lot of their tool sets to get to SAP data. And you know, that's, if there's a gap in the market, somebody's going to look for a way to fill it. It's a natural thing, right? But when you look at what SAP has done with regards to, let's say, just accessing SAP data, we had over 700 developers spent 18 months mapping the data from SAP business applications to deliver it into data products, right? So you could go ahead and have somebody else in the market and you could try to leverage that, but, you know, or you could do what a lot of organizations do. They do it themselves. They actually extract data out of SAP systems and then map it all over again on their own. And I can tell you, another large food processing and distribution company that I mentioned before, it used to do that. And I remember I had some conversations with their lead data architect, and he was really happy that he was able to pull this off, and that they had already done much of this work. He was really not happy when he realized that they were going to upgrade and so much had changed, and it's going to really impact all of the things that they had. And this is something that it doesn't really matter what area you're talking about, right? You know, whether you're talking about a competitive integration, enterprise integration policy, right, where they're going to go ahead and say, I'm integrating into SAP systems for SAP to non-SAP, for example. Well, if we're already maintaining those integration flows in packages that you just download and deploy or make some adjustments to and deploy, and we're providing those out of the box for you, and you have to go build it from scratch with somebody else, and or even if they try to provide those same packages, they're always lagging behind whatever SAP may be doing from a standpoint of one version to the next. They have to wait until the version is released before they can go ahead and make adjustments to their integration packages. We actually have those integration packages being released at the same time we're releasing the products. So this again gets into, you know, your landscape. Are we going to suggest, you know, you should use the BTP and Business Data Cloud if you don't have any SAP business application footprint? Most cases, probably not, to be honest. I mean, let's be fair. We're probably not going to. But if you have an SAP footprint of business applications and you're not using our capabilities, you're probably doing more work than you need to be doing.
Very good. Very good. Okay. I want to tell everyone that's here, if you have some questions, please put them into the Q&A and we'll answer them. We're almost going to wrap up here in just a minute. Talk a little bit about Clean Core. Everybody asks us all the time about Clean Core. You touched on a while ago AI, and you know, it sort of explained to people the difference if they're using agnostic tools or SAP compatible, whatever. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, good one, Dan. The misconception that I run into quite a bit, and I'm surprised it still happens, but it does, is that clean core means no customizations. That's not what clean core means, especially, well, at least not from an SAP perspective. So I apologize on behalf of SAP if you heard somebody from SAP say that to you, that clean core, get rid of your customizations, completely fit the standard. It's not realistic. I mean, I think everybody could imagine like the idea that, it's kind of like saying, I will be that person that will drive the black Model T. I don't need another color. I don't need anything extra. This is how it's going to work for everybody. And there's a reason why others in the marketplace, back when Henry Ford said that about the Model T, if you can have it any color you want, except for as long as it's black, there's a reason why others came into the marketplace and filled that space, because others said, look, I can make one red. I can make one white, yellow, whatever color I want to make it. And they filled that space. And that's a reflection on the idea of the fact that we understand that your business is not going to be completely fit to standard. Right? It's too big of an ask. So we know that we're going to get to a certain percentage of coverage of business requirements with what SAP provides. Now, what organizations historically had done is because they had the access to do so, because SAP released this ability to do so, is they actually modified the core code of SAP. And this created tremendous overhead, really. Because, what's the difference between buying some software off the shelf versus buying or building it completely yourself? Well, most of it is already built if you buy it off the shelf. If you're making some adjustments to it to the point that, let's go back to that car analogy. I'm going to go ahead and void the warranty completely. Well, then that's overhead. I've accepted the cost of the fact that I'm not going to make my life easy when I try to upgrade. So knowing and reflecting on the fact that no one is ever going to be completely fit to standard, that means customizations will happen somewhere. The question is where and how you do it. If you're going to go ahead and make customizations, then you have to start asking yourself some questions like, how closely and tightly coupled is this customization to the business process, right? And do I have to worry about things like latency, right? We have three basic areas that we would suggest making any sort of customizations going forward. One's called key user extensibility. This is essentially using the application. You're making customizations, you're making extensibility a part of the application. You're not developing something and then bolting it on, right? It's all being done within the confines of what we allow within the application. There's a lot you can do in there. You can add forms, you can add fields, and all of those things can be reflected in leveraging that data later on through, where we would say our core data services capabilities. You can access it all through those core data services capabilities as well still. So use that key user extensibility as much as you possibly can. The next one would be, it's not going to be in the application. I'm going to use a on-stack application extensibility. And this is going to be within the SAP development toolset ABAP, right? If you've never heard of the term steampunk, that was a term that actually was internal. It never meant to be released to the marketplace. It was one of the primary developers wrote a blog about it. Next thing you know, it was a term that was available in the marketplace. So it's easy to find it. Go search for steampunk. It will talk about how you use, you customize, and you use application development paradigms, leveraging ABAP, and doing so on stack. Okay, on stack meaning co-located with the SAP business application installation, right? Wherever it's installed, right? And we'll say, let's say it's a managed service, it's cloud, right? Whether it is public or private. And I won't go too far into the public one because we've been offering more as it relates to our ability to go beyond key user extensibility within public cloud and offering more of that on-stack ABAP development within the business application installation, right? But know that there'll be some limitations there as it relates to public versus private cloud. In private cloud, you have a lot of capabilities. Now, do you have the same capabilities that you had as on-prem? No, and that's on purpose, right? What we're trying to do is this idea of clean core, it's existed forever. It just hasn't been employed by customers because they got to a point where they said, we need this, you know, we have this developer framework that we should be following, and, you know, it's taking too long. Let's just do it quick and we'll just get it done. The business needs this now, right? So that happened a lot. And that's where that technical debt just got rolled forward so many times. Within our on-stack development within the cloud, we allow you to do a lot within the ABAP space, but we don't allow you all the things you used to be able to do on-prem in ECC or even in S4 on-prem. So we limit it in that regard. But that's the second place you do it. Key user extensibility first, on-stack development in the business application space. We call this developer extensibility. And then third is side-by-side, right? And this is, I have my cloud installation of, let's say, S4HANA, right? Whether it's public or private. And then I have a BTP environment. Now, let's talk geography just for a moment. Whether you're talking about that being, let's say, on AWS, right, as a particular deployment, and then you have your BTP being on the same AWS, right? And it's just a separate account, if you will, right? And you can, in many regards, and we would recommend it, co-locate them as much as possible within the same data centers, right? To avoid those latency problems, right? And do that development in the business technology platform account, right? Regardless of whatever hyperscale you want to put it. I mean, if you really wanted to, you can go ahead and say, I have my S4 on AWS and I have my BTP environment over here on Google Cloud Platform if you wanted to. That's not what I would recommend. I would recommend putting it on the same hyperscaler and putting it as closely as possible with regards to data centers as you possibly can. But you have the flexibility to do that if you wanted to. That's the last one, which is doing all of that development side by side. Now, the last point I'll make about this is, does this mean that I don't have to go through the same kind of testing that I would have to do if I had, if I introduce a customization or I go through an upgrade of my S4 environment and all of these business applications, let's say for on the BTP, that are interacting with S4? I don't have to test them? Well, of course not. Yes, you have to still test it. You have to acknowledge the fact that a customization, whether you're following best practices or you're not, anytime you make some changes to it, you're gonna have to test it. So that doesn't go away. But by the way, I'll add, this is a great opportunity to talk about test automation, right? Where you can address that problem and reduce those testing cycles tremendously. But it still needs to be done. So those are the big components to take away from this is, and I'll summarize it real quick. You have your key user extensibility. That's going to be done in the application itself. You have your on-stack development. That's going to be done in the installation where the application resides, and you will be limited by the development paradigms that are offered with our extensibility capabilities. And then you have your side-by-side extensibility using the business technology platform. Whether you're going to use the on-stack or whether you're going to use the BTP is all dependent on how tightly coupled the the extension is to the overall business process, right? I click this, if it means it's going to run this application that sits there and it's going to take more than, 30 seconds, that's probably not a good situation to put it in the BTP. You want it on stack. Or it's a simple extension and it's going to be a user exit, or it's going to exit the system and it's going to go do something over here. It's going to, then that's a great opportunity for our side by side. And we have diagrams to show, this versus this versus this versus this. This is where you want to use, key user. This is where you want to use developer. This is where you want to use side by side.
And that was in part the answer that you telepathically knew that I was going to ask you. What advice would you give to somebody evaluating BTP right now? So great answer, Shawn. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, folks. Thank you for joining us today. We can say with clarity that Shawn is one of the most well-respected folks at SAP, especially in the space that he's in, and we've appreciated the partnership and the friendship that we have with Shawn. I can tell you from our perspective at IT2, we've had a lot of success with Integration Suite, with BTP in general, but Integration Suite, and helping companies get an ROI that's very quick and compared to the number of third-party B2B systems that they are integrated with, and the amount of time and maintenance and everything that's involved. So if anybody's interested in a discussion on that, please let us know. Shawn, any other comments you'd like to make, sir?
Oh, just Dan, always a pleasure working with you. Always a pleasure working with the IT2 team. Great group of resources and people that can really make everything that we try to develop at SAP real, right? Where the rubber meets the road. We have ideas of what this is going to do for the marketplace, but it's partners like IT2 that really make it a reality for our customers. So always appreciate the partnership and your kind words. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for today.
Thank you, Shawn. I think everyone was very appreciative of hearing your in-depth knowledge of BTP and a little bit of tease on the BDC as well. So thank you very much, folks. Thank you for joining. Y'all have a wonderful day, and hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you.